The 12th sutra in the first chapter of Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Namaste. The 12th chapter of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, first chapter, 12th sutra. He gives us a very important sutra, Abhyasa Vairagya Nirodha, and further 13th, 14th, 15th sutras he explains about the Abhyasa. Tatra Sthitaha Yatno Abhyasaha Satu Dirghakara Naidantarya Satkara Sevito Dridabhumi. According to about the Vairagya, he gives us the idea Drishya Anuslavika Visha Vitrushnasya Vasekara Sanya Vairagyam. And the last sutra, Tatparam Purusha Khatir Gunavaitrushnyam. These sutras will talk about Abhyasa and Vairagya. Let us take up the first sutra, the 12th sutra, which says that Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tannirodha. In a simple sense, when we try to apply this sutra, the normal course of time, general lectures, we say that it is with the help of Abhyasa and Vairagya, we will be able to come out of the Chitta Vrittis. Chitta Vritti Nirodha, we can happen with the help of, that is what is Tan Nirodha. Chitta Vritti Nirodha can happen with the help of Abhyasa and Vairagya. But it is fine, it is okay, it is useful that way because it's a way the practice of Abhyasa and the Vairagya. Abhyasa is a discipline in a very coarse translation. Vairagya is non-attachment, let go. So by discipline that you will be able to come out of Chitta Vrittis or the agitations of the mind. Similarly, with the help of Vairagya, non-attachment, you will be able to transcend the Vrittis of the Chitta or the mind oscillations and disturbances you go beyond. And these two parameters like Abhyasa and Vairagya is universally accepted in the sense that Bhagavad Gita also gives the same way. Abhyasena kaunteya vairagyena grihtate. Practically how you can do that, Krishna gives a suggestion to Arjuna that with the help of Abhyasa and then Vairagya you can do that. In the case of Yoga Vasishta also, Vasishta tells Rama, but the words he uses are different. He says, Jnanam yogam cha raghava, yogaha tatruddhirodhohi, jnanam samyakavekshanam. For Abhyasa he calls it as yoga and Vairagya he calls it as jnana. In the Shastra it is permitted. But let me explain a little more deep into this kind of thing, this idea. This Abhyasa and Vairagya, that is the idea of repeatedly doing an activity in a disciplined way and also letting go, leaving aside and then marching forward. Both these things are there, part of our life. They are there within us. They need not have to be acquired from outside. Not only that, constantly we are doing that. Every moment it is happening within us. Both these things, like for example, a constant, continuous, repeated activity, and also the letting go and going forward. These are the two things that are happening in our life. So therefore, basically, when we say the Chitta Vritti Nirodha, that means to say the disturbances of the mind or the activity of the mind, we can transcend with the help of Abhyasa and Vairagya or the repeated continuous practices and also with the help of non-attachment. But this particular sutra comes in the first pada. That means it is not yet about the sadhana pada, it's about the samadhi pada. That means to say, these are the states that are there within us, which is already there. So let us try to look at from that particular angle. We already have this idea of repeated practicing of any activity. Like first time that when I come across any activity, it is just only parichaya, it is a knowledge about that. It's an incident. But then I go back again and again. Then slowly what happens is it becomes like a habit for me. And this habit in Sanskrit, we call it as Abhyasa. So I habituated myself in particular activity. Consciously we do it, and that's how we learn the alphabets. In fact, how did we learn the alphabets? Each alphabet we have written at least about several times, 20, 30, 40 times that we have written the alphabet, and then we are able to know, identify the sound and the alphabet together. So this can only be possible by abhyasa. Similarly, somebody's name that you hear repeatedly 2, 3, 4 times, then you remember that name. So that means to say this abhyasa, the repeated doing an activity, is something that we constantly use in our life to see that we acquire the habit, we acquire the knowledge of that particular thing. So this abhyasa is there within us and then we do it. But then there is also a possibility that this abhyasa, in other words, also said that it is something which is compulsive activity, like the way that any activity that we do it repeatedly, then it becomes like a habit. And habit, when we don't control, then it becomes like vasana, hardened habit, and you are getting angry, you are getting upset, you are all these things also can be abhyasa, like smoking, drinking. All these things can be something which repeatedly you practice that you acquire that. So therefore, abhyasa and vairagya, particularly abhyasa, it itself is neither good nor bad. But what you apply for is something which is makes it whether it is right or wrong. Learning alphabets, learning about music, learning about art, learning about all those things is supposed to be abhyasa, using it in the right direction. Whereas going for smoking, going for drinking, going for all the other habits in our life which are going to disturb our life, and these are supposed to be the bad way that abhyasa works on us. I come to a place where we have already visited once and second time, third time, then going to that place becomes like an abhyasa. That means you're used to it. It is nice that when we know that we have to use it, then what happens is that we are the burden of going to we are going to a new place, it goes away from us. That makes life easy. So, one more important aspect of this abhyasa is that it makes life very easy in the sense that you don't have to put so much of an attention in what you are doing. It becomes a habit for you. This is what is abhyasa. Like, for example, driving becomes a habit for people. They don't have to look into while driving whether they have to change the gear, they have to apply the brake, they have to do this, they have to do that, or remember about the street where they have to take a turn. All these things they don't have to do it. It looks like an autopilot, it is going on. That means your interference becomes less and less. The burden on you becomes less and less. First time somebody is learning the driving, and then when he is driving, you can see the amount of burden on his driving, how much that he is straining himself. Whereas the same thing much later, when he is habituated to drive, then the driving becomes such an easy task. It doesn't become like a burden on him, attention on him. So that means to say abhyasa is something that is repeated kind of an activity which we have an ability to do it, becomes like takes away the burden from our mind, our intellect, so that it can become smooth and easy. So therefore this abhyasa is very important in all these cases. So therefore this, if when we can do this abhyasa of these things, like for example acquiring the skill to drive or learning alphabets, music, all these things we can do the abhyasa. That means to say we have an ability to train our faculties to really go into that repeated kind of practices in an activity. The same way that if I, Patanjali says that chitta vritti nirodha, mind not being there, mind activity being transcended, even that can be part of this abhyasa in the sense that by just leaving the uh, activity aside and then sitting quiet, if we can repeatedly do it, that's what is abhyasa. And this abhyasa is there within us. Therefore, basically, we try to get into that state whenever there is no activity that is there, particularly in the case of a children. They just can be quiet. They don't have to have a chitta vritti activity going on. They'll brush it aside and then they can way forward. We were also doing that when we were children. So that means to say, chitta vritti nirodha, that means activity that is going on inside, I can transcend that by going into that state of non-activity by just with the help of a practice, an abhyasa, okay, ability to do that. So this is what really happens in the case of abhyasa, particularly when it is mentioned in the first chapter. It is that this ability is there within us, which will take us to our natural state of quietude. No vrittis are there, no chitta vrittis are there, and that state we will reach it. And that's what every night that we go to sleep. What happens to us that is basically we are trying to touch that particular state repeatedly again and again. So this is what is abhyasa. The second thing is vairagya. Vairagya is also there within us. That means to say you leave it alone and transcend. A very simple way that a child will be so passionately attached to a particular object and he would like to have it, he will make all cry and all that. You know what mother does is that she just hides that particular object and gives some other object to play. What will happen? The child easily forgets about the other one and then now plays with that. That means Vairagya happens. Vairagya is naturally there. Just leave it alone and then proceed further. So this is another very important aspect that's there within us. So when the same way that the worries that are there, anxieties that are there, mental activity that is there, I can leave it aside and go ahead. And we are able to do that. This is there in our lifetime. In fact, if we did not have this vairagya within us, by the time that we have grown up, how many different mental disturbances would have been there in our life had we not had this ability to leave it alone and walk ahead. Today we are fresh. There are so many things which used to bother our head at one point of time. Now they don't bother. Why? Because that you could leave them aside and then walk ahead. You have this ability to leave and then go ahead. Somebody near and dear dies. At that point of time, look at yourself. You are almost like speechless. You are stunned. You cannot say one word. You are completely dipped in misery, you are dipped in sadness, can't even say a word. But then look at what happens over a period of, say, 1 week, 10 days, 15 days. You're able to come out of it. You can talk about it as if something really bad happened. But then you're able to come out of it. The same thing a year later when you look at it, it's much more easier that you are able to describe the whole thing without getting your emotions disturbed. So that means to say this vairagya is happening within us. Abhyasa is happening within us, vairagya is happening within us. They are part of us. And when Abhyasa and Vairagya can happen in so many other areas, it can also happen to see that your vrittis or the disturbances of the mind, agitations of the mind, you will be able to come out of it. And that's what is the idea of yoga. So therefore, that these things can be consciously practiced, but these things are already their abilities within us. Here in the first chapter, when he talks about it, it is basically the idea is that you have it and then you are transcending it, transcending that your vrittis, whenever that it is an application of abhyasa and vairagya takes place within you. It is not that you are supposed to do it, but it is just happens within you. Like the way that you are climbing up the steps, that you keep your foot on this low and a strong step ahead, but then once you put yourself on that, you just come out of the lower step. You can easily come out of it. And that if you don't come out of it, that you can't go ahead. So therefore, that this ability to come out of it is there already within us. So abhyasa, vairagya, these are the two things that are there within us. But much more deeply when you look at it, abhyasa is where that you have taken involved in that in any activity and then trying to discipline it, or the discipline that takes place of an activity, like for example, that writing and developing the skill to write, it is that you're involved in the activity becomes very important for you. Whereas Vairagya is that you let go the object. That means one is looks like opposite to the other. One seems to be holding on to it, another is supposed to be leaving it aside, and then marching ahead. So these two things appear to be opposite each other, but then they're not opposite each other, but they're complementary. That's why he says Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam then Nirodha. That means Chittavritti takes place, Nirodha takes place only with the help of Abhyasa and Vairagya, which are complementary to each other. So these two activities which are complementary to each other are the abilities that we have. Tatra sthitaha yatnau abhyasaha. In fact, further he clarifies that this practice of being in that state, disciplining, it is not something that you do it with an effort. When you do it with an effort, it is called as prayatna. But here he calls it as yatnaha. Yatnaha means there's no specific force behind it, but you just casually be with that. Like you habituate yourself casually like that. It's not a pressure, it's not a forced state, but it is natural ability that's there within you. It's as a natural ability as the way that you see, you hear, the way that you do any activity in a natural sense. The same way this abhyasa or the discipline in yourself is a natural activity that's there within. Therefore, he says, a natural activity to be there in that tatasthita yatno abhyasa. You see the children, particularly you learn from them because that they do it repeatedly. In fact, how much that they repeatedly do it when they do it, so naturally, spontaneously. When they develop walking, they just get up and walk. There is no reason why they have to walk, but then walk. It is like repeating that state, tatra sthitaha yatno abhyasaha. That means that they spontaneously do it to be in that state. And that is what the abhyasa, this is what they do. They Dirghakala, Satu Dirghakala, Nairantarya Satkara Sevito, Dradabhuvi. When this happens for a long period of time, and that is what is Dirghakala, Nairantarya, that means without any gap, it is continuously like a flow that you are doing it. Satkara Sevito, a very important word in the sense that it is not with an idea of any pressurizing, forcing, or fighting with the body, but it is Satkara. That means respecting the ability of the body to do that is Satkara Asevita Dridabhumihi. Then it becomes you get established in that. So it becomes very natural for you. How many times I see the people drive the vehicle, they just don't know where that they are, how they are pressing the brakes or pressing the accelerator or anything like that. It all happens robotic way. The same way an instrument one who plays an instrument, you can see that the fingers move on the instrument just like that a beautiful dance of the fingers on the even the dancers dance also becomes like its natural way of flow. That is what is going on. This is the idea, Satkara, with the help of the respecting for the body's ability to be able to do that. Satkara, Asevitaha, Dridabhumihi. We are established in that, and that's what is basically Abhyasa. Abhyasa is not a pressure. That's why it is called as not by pressure, not by force, but it's a spontaneous way of doing it. That's what is Abhyasa. If you can do Abhyasa in all these things, in the dance and the music and playing an instrument or doing any activity, the same thing can be also in the way that your mind becoming quiet. Also, Chittavritti Nirodha can also be natural process of Abhyasa that you can just let go. Easy provided that you don't unnecessarily put too much of pressure on doing activity. Just being. Being is our own nature, and that can be possible with the help of Abhyasa. The second thing is Vairagya. That means Vairagya is, he gives the idea, Drishya Anushravika Vishaya Vitrushnasya Vashikara Sanya Vairagyam. Drishta, that means to say whatever that you see, Anushravika, whatever that you hear. So, Vishaya Vitrushnasya, that means to say the object that are there, getting caught up in that object that is there, not being caught up in that object and then being free from that. Vashikara Sanya. Vashikara means getting attached to, losing yourself behind the object, losing yourself behind the thing, and Vairagya, leaving alone that. That's what is Vairagya. To be able to see that you are able to do that, it is what is basically the idea of Vairagya. So, Tat Param Purusha Khyate Gunavaitrushnya. Now, this Vairagya is to see that you go to a higher level of being. We are always capable of doing that. Children, they can easily go beyond that. They can be blissful. They can be just blissful, leaving all the material outside behind it. So, and up to what level we can go to that, this is what he says that Purusha Khyate Guna Vaidrushnya. This particular condition is something which is unique, extraordinary, because what this also gives us an idea that in the beginning of the creation, the Purusha is supposed to be the consciousness. The consciousness first modification of the consciousness in the form of three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, and from three gunas, all the other things later on developed. Even including the I, that is the Jivatma, is developed because with these three gunas. Beyond all these three things, and beyond all these things, and beyond the three gunas when you go, that's what is Purusha. So, up to that level that you can let go, you can leave it behind and then go ahead. That means to say, even the gunas are also at a lower stage compared to the Purusha sthiti into the consciousness. So when we, and that's what is our Jivatma. If I have to go to that, that means even I have to detach myself from all these gunas also. It's very difficult because what happens is that we have an attachment to one guna or the other, especially that we are taught in that way, this guna is better, this guna is less better. So there is always an attachment with the gunas, and we always perform the activities with particular guna intention behind it. But all these gunas are the way that the world is to be managed. It is for the sake of the world, not for the self. So self is beyond all these gunas. Self is at the level where that not only all other outer material things are you cross over, but at the same time, Vairagya is that the last Vairagya can be the Vairagya of the Gunas. In fact, this is again, Patanjali is very beautiful in analyzing this kind of a detail that later on also that you get into, that Vitarka Vichara Ananda Asmita Anugamat. Vitarka Vichara Ananda, you just cross that. Even Asmita, you cross it. That means to say, an individuation also that you cross it. And that is where basically these gunas will come into that picture, and then you cross that. And that's what is the Purusha Khyate Gunavaitrishnyam. So when you are freed from these gunas, then only it is Purusha Khyati. That means to say the highest state of Purusha, and that state is available. And Ramakrishna Paramahamsa as a small child, Gadai, when he saw that the birds that were flying across the sky, and then he got into that deep samadhi, that point of time he was free from all the gunas, and that was there as a child in his own experience. And we see this kind of an absorption, a samadhi state in the children, even in the normal course of time. Child does not know that's a wonderful state. Ramakrishna also did not know what really happened. Later on, several years later, after that he practiced in meditation, all that in the Kali temple. At the end of it, when Totapuri came and he had that experience of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when he came out of that Samadhi, somebody asked him that, what is that you have experienced? He said, no, there is nothing new. It was already there when I was 7 years old. I had that experience. It repeated itself. The same way Buddha also says that when he came back from his sadhana, and then when he came out, when people asked him that what is that you gained by the sadhana, Buddha said, I did not gain anything. I lost. What did you lose? I lost everything, including all these three gunas also I lost, freed from that, which is already there within me. A state that is there free from all those things, and that's what we state. So Abhyasa, Vairagya, they are there within us already, and then we unconsciously use those things to go to that state where it is we are free from the vrittis, and that is the state where we are in the Swarupa, we are in the Atmasthiti, or we are in the Brahmasthiti, one with that. But then we come back because that it is not consciously practiced. Now, there is another very important aspect about this Abhyasa and Vairagya, and that is this Abhyasa is orderliness, and Vairagya is non orderliness or the chaos. In fact, in the creation, both these things are there. When you look at the whole creation, how the creation behaves in this way, that there is something which is orderly, but at the same time, hidden behind it, or along with that, you can see that non-orderliness, and that's what is chaos that's available. Look at the way that when you look at the leaves of any particular tree, from a distance also you can recognize that they are leaves of a particular tree. That means that there is orderliness. They look alike. Banana leaves look alike. Similarly, that mango leaves, that they look alike. But then when you come closer to that, no two leaves are alike. They are so, and there is no any relationship. What is orderliness? Orderliness is that one follows the second to the third and fourth. That means to say there's a sequential growth and development, sequential way of doing it. Whereas in the case of Vairagya, that means to say chaos, absolutely there is no sequential way of the thing. It just suddenly out of blue, it just explodes. So that is the same thing that you could see that both the hands of ours, they're just like mirror image. They are left hand, right hand, they are like mirror image. As if that there is one particular object and that object has been split into two. That's why right hand and left hand. It looks so similar. That means to say there is so much of discipline in that.